Oof, it's time. Once a month, the balance report on Aligulac gets updated. So this basically keeps track of all of the tournament games that are being played, and then it plots a nice little graph to show the win rates for the non-mirror matchups. Now this time around, let me actually move the chat box. This time around, it's kind of gotten out of whack. Let us maybe just specify since 2020. So if the goal of the new patch was to indeed bring the Zerg win rate from a pretty bad position up to a more comfortable one, and for the Protoss win rate to go from a very good position to a slightly worse one, I would say the patch may have been an overwhelming success. Now this is the performance difference. If we look at the balance report itself right over here, what in the world are we looking at? Okay, alright. So this is obviously the more dramatized version. So this chart can avoid some of the problems with the one above, which can potentially be influenced by incredibly hot streaks from one or two singularly great players. Right, so this is basically implying that Zerg is doing far better right now, and Protoss is doing substantially worse than they were a month prior to these numbers. I don't think it's all too much surprising to see Protoss doing worse, mostly because they have to relearn the early game. But this, I think, is mostly due to the passive larva regen. Now, you gotta keep in mind that in June, we did also have, like, a... How long was this? Like, say, like, I don't know, a quarter or so of the month, maybe slightly less, where the larva respawn rate on hatcheries was way too fast. So they already have adjusted it down. So you do have to take, well, as per usual, all of these numbers with a grain of salt. But it is very ironic, right? Like how far we've come here. So what are the actual win rate numbers? Like what is the win percentage for each of the matchups? So Terran versus Zerg is now in favor of Zerg at about 52.5%. That is on a sample size of 517 games that are in the database. And all of the games in the database on this website are tournament games. So some of those will be Serral, some of those will be Clem. Many of them are not necessarily going to be at that level, but it is certainly something that is interesting. So we've gone from 55%, roughly 56% of the games being in favor of Terran, to honestly a slightly more balanced situation in this matchup. Right? I mean, it used to be 55.5% in favor of Terran. Now it's 47.5% for the Terran, which is not that great for them, obviously. But at least statistically speaking, it is slightly closer to 50%. What about Zerg versus Protoss? So it went from 55% in favor of Protoss to now, if I can even click on it, to now, okay, about 52.7% in favor of Zerg. So we've gone from both of the matchups being in favor of Terran and Protoss to now both of the matchups being in favor of Zerg. Protoss versus Terran, 44% in favor of Protoss, meaning that Protoss is winning the overwhelming, or losing the overwhelming amount of games. So they have gone from winning 54% to now winning 44%. Oh, hold up the doorbell, 1 sec. All right. I was waiting for a package. It got delivered just now. I went down immediately, and the guy was already just about ready to leave. He was already making a little note, ready to shove it down my mailbox, that I wasn't home. I was home, okay? I just had to run down the stairs. I don't know how it is in other countries, but in the Netherlands, they give you about 3.5 seconds before they leave. I made it. That's my cardio for today. Okay, so long story short, Terran versus Zerg has gone from the matchup being in favor of Terran to the matchup being in favor of Zerg. Likewise, Protoss versus Zerg has gone from being in favor of Protoss to being in favor of Zerg. And Protoss versus Terran has gone from being in favor of Protoss to being in favor of Terran. So effectively what it comes down to is that Protoss is doing significantly worse. Zerg is doing significantly better. And Terran is somewhat okay. But honestly, I hear a lot of Terran players complain about the new patch as well. I do think, though, that this graph is a little bit misleading, the both of them. Because, yeah, Protoss is doing worse, but also Protoss kind of has to figure out how to play the early game. Like, the way it feels to me, right, is that across the board, the Zerg early game is just mostly the same, but slightly easier. Some things are more expensive, but the larva buff really does just make things a little bit easier. For Terran, you have to sort of play by some new rules. Like, you have to figure out, can I still go triple command center against Zerg every game? Probably not. You have to start with some early game harassment, which is not something that a lot of Terrans have been doing. So it's a different role that you're fulfilling in the early game as Terran. And it's really quite the same as well against Protoss. And then for Protoss, you have to reinvent the entire early game. So you end up from an early game where you can just default to getting the warp gate upgrade and your gateways automatically transforming and all the rest of it. To now, yeah, things being much more difficult. I'm really curious to see where, at the end of July, we're going to be instead. The 8-worker start, I think, is less significant. Honestly, I haven't really noticed a ton of variety. Like, people really were excited about the 8-worker start, and I, from the start, kind of thought it was dumb. It doesn't really do that much more, although we do see the occasional 10 pool, especially in, like, Zerg versus Zerg, but it's a mirror matchup. We do see, like, the occasional Terran cheese, but it's really not revitalized the early game very much, I don't think. I think the changes to, like, the Zerg creep and the larva and all that are doing a lot more in the Zerg matchups, and then likewise, obviously, the gateway change do a lot more for Protoss. But yeah, Zerg is a little bit more powerful now. If you look at the overall world rankings, so where are we currently at? Number 1 is Serral. Surprise. Number 2 is Hero. Number 3 is MaxSpecs. I haven't actually seen MaxSpecs play much over the last couple weeks. Hero has been a bit salty. We've seen him rage quit a bunch. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Clem, likewise, also has been rage quitting a bunch. Solar has been having a good time. I heard that Maru dropped down a lot. Maru, especially on the ladder, apparently dropped down below a level that he was playing at like a decade ago. So I don't really know exactly how that's going. As far as I know, Maru hasn't really been playing in tournaments either. Yeah, so he played in the GSL CK, but that's really about it. Hey, there's a new change or a new version of Aligulac? Yo, I didn't even know that. Cool. I didn't realize there was going to be a new Aligulac. All right, anyways. It does appear, though, that Zerg is a little bit overpowered right now. I think we probably need to give the Protoss early game a little bit more time to cook. I think Terran can be mostly unchanged. But I think it would be okay if they were to just, like, make a small adjustment to the passive larva regen on the hatchery. So it used to be, like, 10.7. Then they move it down to 9.0, meaning that, like, every 9.0 seconds, a passive larva would regenerate on a hatchery. Then they dropped it down to, like, 9.5, and I think right now it's 9.9 or something. Maybe they need to drop it down a little bit further to, like, 10.2 or something, you know? I feel like that would probably also calm down a lot of the anger that is currently present in the community. It's really not even that significant below the pro level, I don't think. A lot of people on the Reddit and on the Battle.net forums and whatnot are shouting about how the ladder is now unplayable. Yeah, so look. This is quite interesting. So this is the team count by race distribution by league. So this is for season 67. Hey, Gen Alpha. Anyways, this is the current overview for the amount of Zerg players in Grandmaster League. And let's just say that in the past, Grandmaster League was like 40% Protoss. Right now, it is 42% Zerg. So Terran is at 26, Protoss at 29, and Zerg at 42. And then there's a couple of random players as well. But that is quite a difference. Look at the American ladder in particular. Now, the American ladder is kind of dead. Most people these days play on the EU server. Even a lot of the Koreans nowadays play on the EU server. So that's probably the most representative. But either way, this is, yeah, certainly kind of different than what we used to have. So right now on the North American server, more than half the Grandmaster players are Zerg. Kind of nuts. And then on the lower levels, you always see a lot more Terran, which I guess is due to the fact that a lot of people play the campaign and then decide to give multiplayer a try, and most people probably start with the Terran campaign. Yeah, so if you're a Zerg versus Zerg specialist, right now is a really good time to be playing. ZVZ has always been quite difficult for me. But yeah, it is interesting. Things certainly are changing.